A few years ago, I quit my job at Disney as a storyboard artist, and now I am directing indie films. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some behind-the-scenes footage of some recent things that we've filmed, while explaining how I made the transition and some of the differences between the two jobs. I've explained why I decided to quit my career in animation many times before. I made a whole video about it at the time, but there are some updates that I would like to share now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and I know myself better. And why I think independent filmmaking is more suited for my personality rather than working at a place like Disney in what I would like to call corporate animation. I think the first time I realized I really wanted to work in the film industry was watching Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight.
No, you complete me.
Technically, I've always been in love with movies and storytelling because I've been obsessed with anime since I was born, essentially. But it was around the time The Dark Knight came out, I think I was in high school, when I started taking possibly having a career in entertainment seriously. But I didn't really know all the different career possibilities available to me. I knew that I was somewhat decent at drawing, so when looking at all the career possibilities, the most obvious thing were, I don't know, character design for video games or doing something in animation. So naturally, that's what I thought I should get a job doing because I didn't want to starve. So when I went to college, the school told me that animation and filmmaking is pretty much the same thing. I was an impressionable young woman. Alarm bells should have rang for me because clearly the illustration major is not the same as the film major for a reason. I don't know if this is a universal thing for most people who go to college, but everyone thinks their major is the most important thing in the entire world. Doctors think they are God's gift to humanity. Business majors think they're going to be richer than everybody. Psychology and philosophy majors think they're smarter than you. And art majors think we are the most creative people on the planet. Maybe this is also just main character syndrome for just young people. But when I started working in animation, it wasn't exactly what I envisioned for my life. There's something that drives a person insane when all the work you do is on a screen and digital. It doesn't actually feel like you're doing any work at all. The main reason I decided to quit was because I felt a huge lack of purpose where I was at. Getting a promotion and upward trajectory did not motivate me. I didn't really care how much more I was going to get paid because it meant I would have zero time to myself and most likely I would end up in a managerial position eventually. I don't want to manage people because what that means is you get all of the blame with none of the control or ownership of the project. I watched my bosses and mentors and other coworkers that were far more experienced than me sit around waiting for retirement to come. All the life force was drained from their existence and they weren't really living life anymore. It felt like to me a lot of people had given up on generally having pleasure and enjoyment in life. At the time, I was most likely experiencing a quarter-life crisis and burnout. Contrary to popular belief, I was not a disgruntled employee that was salty that I didn't get a promotion. It was actually the opposite. I was actively turning down promotions because I was deathly scared of them because I didn't want to blink and go like, where did my life go? I am a 70-year-old woman and I didn't do anything. And the corporate life of managing office politics was driving me insane. I had no friends and I felt deeply lonely. My coworkers viewed me as competition, and I just didn't want to be around people who clearly hated me and I them. The things that I did take from working at Disney is the skills to be around difficult people with huge egos. I've taken that skill and translated it to all aspects of my life, and I'm eternally grateful for having to deal with those shitty situations. Even though I do wish I didn't have to experience them, it's made me grow up as a person, and it's definitely taught me how to navigate very tricky situations now that I have to deal with a lot more people. Which brings me to the first thing I did to transition to filmmaking, and it was to make friends. After I quit my job, I became a 30-year-old who had no friends. Not only was that really bad for my mental health, in life in general, it's about who you know, not necessarily what you know. The more friends you have in life, the easier your life is probably going to be. It was really hard for me at first because I had developed such incredible social anxiety after quitting and having a huge amount of fallout with a bunch of friends or people I thought were my friends. But something that I love about the film community is everyone is so kind, friendly, and genuine. I love how collaborative every single set is. That's just the nature of live action filmmaking. I went from having 0 friends and being pretty socially awkward to having a pretty large social network of people who I can really bond with on a very deep level, because we all are doing this because it's really fun for us. And even though I lost pretty much all my friends in animation, it didn't really mean that much, because for those who don't know, animation and live action filmmaking don't really intermix. The brutal truth is Hollywood doesn't really respect animators and animation. So even though at the time it felt like I was actively burning all the bridges, they weren't really bridges that were very helpful to keep, especially if clearly they hated me a lot. Another thing that a lot of people don't really understand about the entertainment industry is that if you work in one part of the industry and you want to transition to another part that's kind of separate, for example, animation to live action, your experience in one does not mean much in the other. Whether you're a storyboard artist like me, or let's say you're an editor or whatever, your dream job has a very specific ladder to climb, and if you're not currently climbing that ladder, you drop to the bottom when you decide to transition, which means you kind of have to climb your way up from the bottom and learn as if you know nothing. For some people, that might be a huge blow to their ego, especially when they become, let's say, an art director or a director in animation or whatever else. But for me, I kind of really love that because I crave growth. I really want to be able to be creative and to constantly be improving myself and learning, which I wasn't really doing in my previous career anymore. In fact, I saw a lot of people regress in terms of skill because you don't really grow once you start working. You might be growing as a person in terms of having to deal with shitty situations and office politics. You mature, get a little bit more jaded, you get a little bit better at dealing with people, but in terms of skill and the craft, that is a very personal thing that a lot of people don't have time to invest in once you start working. You're too exhausted dealing with everything else on your plate. With filmmaking, I'm constantly growing. I feel like a student again, collaborating with other students on film projects, and because we're all helping each other, I feel like we're really leveling up at a very fast pace all together, and we're all rising together. So even though it is very hard work, I'm not gonna lie, I am dead tired after every single shoot. But because I'm having so much fun doing it, it just feels like I'm hanging out with friends and doing cool shit every single weekend. These days, I'm spending as much time as I can going out there and filming things with people because I genuinely believe practice makes perfect. And the more opportunities I get out there to shoot, the more I'm meeting people, the more experience I'm getting, and I feel like I'm living life to the absolute fullest. My circle of friends is constantly growing, and I'm having an absolute blast doing all of it. So even though this is technically just the beginning of my filmmaking journey, I really do feel like I'm living the dream. So I'm going to be taking you guys along with me and showing you the process of documenting everything that it takes to make films, a lot of behind the scenes. If you like that kind of thing, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.